I'm born and raised in Philadelphia's inner city of two alcoholic parents who bore 5 girls whom they didn't want. And my growing up experience included a lot of domestic violence calls and abuse, and not a nice way for 5 little girls to grow up. When I went at 17 years old to my first religious meeting, which was Billy Graham, he's getting big now, and I received Christ into my heart, and I knew that was going to be the end of bad things for me. And shortly after that, I'd call the police on my father again, and I would get on a bus and I'd head out to California. Got my first job out there as a little typist in the San Francisco area, and met a salesman in the morning who was coming through, who was given a party for the whole office to say thank you. So he told me where the party was, and I showed up, and I was the only one who did. And I was trapped. He raped me that night, and it was as a virgin teenager and a brand new Christian. You can imagine how confused I was. I couldn't understand why God would let me be raped. I had just become a Christian. I thought this was going to be the end of trouble. But it was not. I decided that night that I wouldn't tell anybody. I would just go to work the next morning, never to see the salesman again, who was gone back to his territory. And I began my process of pretending that everything was okay, but I was so traumatized, emotionally and physically, that finally wound up at the doctor for a flu shot, and he said, "You're pregnant, congratulations." I said, "Oh, no, see, I can't be an unwanted child with an unwanted child. It's not fair." I was so confused. And a friend told me that she'd take me across the border to Mexico to get an abortion. She'd helped her cousin get one there. And I'm so glad that there was not available to me a Planned Parenthood clinic, some family planning place where you can go. And my girlfriend said, "Get rid of this thing, it's gonna mess up your whole life." And I realized that I had control over my own body, but any doctor will tell you when you're pregnant, that's not your own body. That's a temporary implant you've got in your body. And I know people who say, "Well, it's not a baby." I think, well, okay, if it's not alive, then just leave it alone. See what happens. Yeah, if it's not alive, why is it growing? If it's not, what is it going to be? Some Sigourney Weaver alien that's going to burst out of your chest one day? I don't think so, no. I believe that even though a couple may decide when to make love, God decides when to make life, if the Bible is true. And if that's true, then there's no such thing as an illegitimate child, because life is in the hands of God. So I didn't know much of that fancy stuff. I just signed up at Los Angeles County Adoptions to relinquish my baby at birth, gave birth to a baby girl in a county hospital, and that was not a good day. I remember thinking, "Oh, Lee, you're so young, you're going to have plenty of other children." I never would have imagined that would be the only child I would ever give birth to. But as time would pass, I would meet my husband-to-be, who had 2 children, whose wife had died, and so I'm back in an adoptions court in LA County, swearing in, adopting his 2 daughters, and wondering all the time, I wonder who stood here for me. I wonder, does she know she's adopted? Let's see, how old is she now? 7? What are her folks like? Where does she live? Boy, if you're an adoptee, I hope you know you're thought about. And your birth mother loved you enough to give you life. She did not reject you. So for me, I went on with my life and produced some books and got to speak around the country and do the things I love. And then one day I'm sitting at home, pick up the telephone, the voice on the end of the phone says, "Hello, you've never met me, but you're my mother." And wow, it was a beam me up, Scotty moment, as here, this voice on the end of the phone was telling me that she is basically the missing piece of my life. And she began to describe to me how she had been searching and her motivation to let me know that I'm a grandmother. And also she was motivated by wanting to do what she always dreamed someday she could do to her birth mother, and that is she tried to lead me to Christ on the telephone. And I was just so taken back. I said, no, hold it. What's your name, honey? Julie? No, I know you're trying to lead me to Christ, but you already did that, see, a long time ago. For truly it would be that experience in my life that would teach me how to walk with God when life's not fair. We set a date to get a look at each other for the first time, and through this door walks this girl who is the striking image of me. And first thing she ever said to me as she passed me her baby was, now go to your grandma. And I would look at baby pictures. We would stand there in awe of each other. And her husband reached out his hand and said, I want to shake your hand, Lee. I want to say, thanks for not aborting Julie. I don't know what my life would be like without her and the kids. I'm so amazed to see how God has used our story since I wrote the book, The Missing Piece, about this experience, and how we wound up on all those weird talk shows on TV. I mean, we had some wonderful opportunities to share about life. And I remember when I was on there once with Julie, an interviewer said to her, now, you're not the product of love, you're the product of rape, right? And she said, well, how does anyone know if you are the product of love or not? She said, as a matter of fact, I think God wanted me born, so in a way I am the product of love. She said, I'm just glad I did not get the death penalty for the crime of my father. My daughter Julie and I are Exhibit A for the whole pro-life matter. And I don't believe that the pro-life thing is really a religious matter. It's a matter of human rights. And there's more than one human being to be considered. And I know from my experience that God can take the worst thing that's happened to you in your life and make it into the best thing that's ever happened to you in your life.